Okay, so welcome to Turbo Hebrew. This is an adventure. I love Hebrew. I love the Hebrew language. There's so much uh, rich uh, material for your Bible study and for theological understanding and for teaching and for preaching involved in the language study of biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek. This is the language, this is the heart language, the language that the scriptures were spoken in. These are the words in the language that God spoke to Moses, that Jesus spoke to as far as biblical Greek and Aramaic, and the New Testament, Jesus spoke to the disciples. These things are so important to understanding what the author meant when they spoke to their audience. And really, that's what Bible study is about. When we're talking about exegesis. Exegesis is that wonderful term that's hard to understand, but basically it's Bible study from the original languages, being able to deal with these. And so that's what Turbo Hebrew is about. That's what biblical Hebrew, biblical Greek is about. Turbo Hebrew is about taking that 30 weeks of Hebrew study and squashing it down into 12 because it's 2 semesters of Hebrew. And so I've cut it down as much as I could, but it's still a boatload of work regarding what you need to know. And it's like the bricks on the wall behind me, in the essence that you don't have the building blocks down below, you're not going to be able to do what's needed up above. You've got to have the whole language, and that means that Greek professors and Hebrew professors, we have to require you to memorize some things, and a lot of things, unfortunately. But the more you memorize, as far as the things that we ask you to, then you can see the structure and build the wall in your mind yourself. You don't have to remember where every brick goes. It just sort of the system all fits together. You end up with less memorization if you do it the way that I'm asking you to do it. I teach a very old style. This is more of the deductive method, the way they would have taught it 50, 100, 150 years ago. This is how you would have taught Hebrew. And so my professor, Russell Fuller, wrote the textbook. I took him, and I really appreciate the way he teaches it, the results that we have gotten from students in teaching it this way, especially flipping the class where you're reading the book, watch the video, read the book. Let me think now here, get it in the right order. Read the book, watch the video, do the questions, and you step through all these process. That process really hammers home the repetitive nature of what you need to get into your brain, what you need. And so I've been through this. I've seen great results. I actually do the exact same way you're learning it now. I do in class. Students are watching, reading the book, watching the video, doing the questions outside of class, come to class, like right here, and then ask questions. They have intelligent questions, and they know some of the concepts that we're talking about. And so that's what this is about. I do this, again, in both on class and online. I teach it the same way. The only thing that I can't do online is look over your shoulder and give you encouragement the way I can in class on campus. And so I do a lot of that on campus. We do our homework basically in class. And so I'm looking over your shoulder. We'll try to do that here. I will, if you have no questions, I will just review the chapters for the week. If you have questions, then we'll focus on those. And then I'm posting videos of reading the vocabulary, so you'll have that. I'm going to be posting videos of the translations, so you're going to have that. So this was mainly a review, question, answer time. Try to hit the highlights and focus on questions you have. And if you can't show up, I'm recording these, so you can watch them later. And that's how we'll manage these things. But I will be giving pertinent class information in these online sessions. This is as if we're in class. So if you're not listening to these, I'm not asking you to report that you are watching these online lectures or sessions, excuse me. But if you're not, you're going to be missing things about how we're handling the class, special issues that have come up. The exams are going to be talked about in these these sessions as well. So, so again, welcome to Turbo Hebrew, and I would hope that everything has been working online. Canvas is new to me. We're all switching over, all professors switching over to Canvas this summer. And so from here on out, we're no longer using Blackboard. And so this is the new software we're going to be using, and I'm learning it. And so I'll try to answer your questions, try to get everything up to speed. If something's not working, you know, we've got those 3 discussion boards. One is just to welcome, meet, and greet your colleagues. One is urgent if there's a course stoppage, like we found out a link today wasn't working for uploading the chapter 2 questions. Got that fixed. So there's an urgent discussion board. If you post there, it comes to my phone immediately. And I would suggest that you subscribe to the urgent. Also subscribe to the Ask the Professor a Hebrew question. So if you have a Hebrew question, post it there. That way, when I respond, you get the response, but everyone gets it, because there's going to be others. And we have a course of, I think, 54 to 56 students as of the last I saw. I think a couple of those might be administration. But in any case, we got over 50 students. And if you ask the question, there's probably 5 other people that have the same question. I mean, probably pretty significantly so. So try to ask those questions on those sites. If it's a personal question, then send me an email. Let me know that in the subject line is Turbo Hebrew, because I've got so many students in classes. But personal questions through email, but urgent course stoppages through the urgent discussion board. Ask the professor a Hebrew question through that Ask the Professor a Hebrew question discussion board. And that's how we'll handle the class moving forward. Most things are you know, download, print, take it, scan, correct in red ink, scan it, upload it. So it's that cycle of things. And then you've got immediate feedback, because the idea of correcting in red ink, all the answers to the questions are in the back of the workbook. Answers to the questions themselves are the chapter, are in the chapter, but workbook has all the other exercises. Answer key has all the workbook drill sheet. Answer key has all the chapter quizzes, answer keys. But we expect you to show all work, because there are steps involved in these things. So you can't just put the answer down. You've got to show the steps to each of those. And so so that's involved. The vocabulary, I'm inputting those, the vocab quizzes as we go along. I've got 3 chapters 10 so far. I worked on 11 and 12 today. So I'll keep ahead of you working those. So those are multiple choice quizzes online. The vocab quizzes, every 5 chapters we have a comprehensive, you know, 2 through 5, 2 through 10 vocab quiz, that sort of thing. And so everything is listed in the modules, the weekly modules, and the lessons underneath those weekly modules correspond to the chapters. And so walking through everything you need to do are listed in those lessons. And the downloads of the work that you need to download, as far as handouts or quizzes you need to download, grammar quizzes, and then print, take, and scan and upload. All of those sorts of things are available within each lesson. And there's multiple lessons per week. As you can see, we got 38 chapters to cover in 12 weeks. And I tried to organize those where the chapters we'll have some weeks with 4 chapters. And those, hopefully, I tried to make it where those weeks, the chapters would actually be a little lighter, some of them, so that it balances out the amount of work. So this is what we're doing moving forward. And do we have any questions? You're free to hit the space bar, and that will just unmute you. And so if you have a question, or you can send it to me, you can send it in the chat room. That would work well. Let's see here. Maybe we have one. Okay. I guess I gave the wrong link last week. Yeah, it's the one online now. So we had sorry about that, gentlemen. The last 2 just got in. I'll try to keep note of that waiting room. So any questions? Maybe it would be best to type them if you have a question. If not, then I'm going to move forward in sharing my screen, and so I guess I'll head toward that, and I'll come back to the questions if there are any. So I'm going to share with you my Logos Bible software. And I have just recently, I've never had this version before, but I've just recently purchased Logos on, the grammar and workbook on Logos, which is quite nice. So I'm liking what we have. So this is chapter 1 of the Hebrew grammar, alphabet and vowels. I'm requiring that, and I've just redone the alphabet and vowels quiz, just so that it conforms to what I'm exactly wanted. If you've already done it, it's all right. You can use the older version, but the newer version corresponds exactly to this. Just these 4 columns, printed letters, the letter and the dot, if it's a dotted letter, the names of the letters, the final letters, if they occur, and if they have, like the final cough has 2 dots in it, the name of the letters, and then the phonetic values of the letter. So that's what you'll need to reproduce as far as the alphabet. You can see they're different. Hebrew's hard because the letters are totally different. The vowels are totally different. It reads from right to left, and there are very few connections between Hebrew words, roots, and this sort of thing, and English. So it looks like a bunch of chicken scratch where some chickens walked through some ink and walked across the page. That makes it very difficult. You don't have any hooks for Hebrew like you do for Greek. With Greek, you've got words that have come into English quite readily. Anthropology is the study of man, anthropos, in Greek for man. So let's look at the letters. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, Tzadeh, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, and Tav. So these are the letters. And you'll want to be careful in writing them, that some of them can look like others. You can end up with an ayin looking like a tzadeh. That's very common. Or you can end up with a resh down here looking like a dalet. Very similar. So there's some letters that are similar. You're going to watch out for beit and kaf. What's the difference? Well, the beit has a tittle, a little bitty overrun here, a little bit littlest part of a letter. Remember when the Lord says not one jot, that's the yod, smallest letter, or tittle, the smallest part of a letter, will pass away from the law. That's what he's talking about the letters of the alphabet. So not just the words, but actually he's getting his smallest letter and smallest part of the letter. He's getting more specific. These are the Hebrew letters, and they're foundational. You have to memorize them. You have to know them. I can't move forward with you. You can't move forward in Hebrew without knowing these down cold. I can't accept a percentage of the letters being known. Otherwise, you can't really move forward. This is why the grammar quizzes, since they're so foundational, you have to pass them with basically a 99% right to get a pass on those. And so you've got to get those all passed to pass the class. That's one of the issues of the class. You've got to know that foundational material. Also the vowels. We're looking at English class vowels of A, E, I, O, and U. And so you need to know this whole chart, even the transliteration, because it becomes important here. And you're going to reproduce how to place these vowels under the letter or following the letter. The ones under actually follow, because you would read this sa, samic, and then the patak would be sa, or segol, se, or say, with a sere yod, the long would be say. And then The Hirik is si. Kamas Hatuf is a short O, so. So all these vowels are following, even though they're under, they follow. Kibbutz is a short, is a U sound, su. Even though it's short, U, kibbutz, it sounds the same as the shurit, the long U, su. The Kametz is a long A, sa. Sere, say. Sere, yod, say. Segol, yod, also has the long say, EY sound. Hirik yod is C, as in B with two E's. C is a Hirik yod. Aholam is so, even though it's long. It's above the letter now. It follows. The Hirik yod follows, below and follows. Segol yod, Sere yod is same, are below and following. The Holam Vav follows, so, and the Shurit follows, su. So you're reading these with the letter first and the vowel next. And so some of these are long and some of these are short, and you need to know which are which. Some of them are historic long, and they have the little cross here, and you need to know that those are historic long. It will matter down the line. We'll be working with these short versus long syllable rules and these sorts of things. It matters. Very foundational. As I move on, so you got the different exercises. When they talk about orally reading these, just note on that when you turn these in, that you, in the file you turn in, that you read these out loud. Just note that. That's fine. The questions is, again, at the end of the chapters, you can just write a statement. Hey, I taught these to my study partner, or I taught these to my pastor, my friend, my colleague. You can do that, and I would prefer that even, because thinking through it, vocalizing it is even better than writing it out. Chapter 2, the issue is consonantal versus vocalic yod. Before I do that, let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see here. Do we correct the textbook chapter drills in red ink? Yes, you would. If so, how? The answers are in the back of the workbook. As I said earlier, the answers are all there. They're in sections, so you'll find the answers to the exercises there as well. Yes, thank you, Chandler, for letting us know that. That's perfect. Chapter 1, yes, the answers are in the book. I mean, it's very basic, and so really starts with the chapter 2 exercises. So again, as I mentioned, good question. Listing that you orally read those is fine. Absolutely good. Okay, so back to the chapter 2, consonantal and vocalic yod. The issue is sometimes these are used as consonants and sometimes as vowels. You need to know the difference. It happens that we're going to be syllabifying words. We're going to be creating words. And so it makes a difference whether it's a vowel or a consonant. You can't make a vowel shift according to syllable rules if it's actually a consonant. You shouldn't be doing that. And so it's important that we learn these. Why do we have to learn these? Because we create words. Why are we going to create words? Because the Hebrew Bible already has them created. Well, we go through the process of creating words so that you know what the word is when you look at it to parse it. So again, the deductive idea that of the way that I teach Hebrew is important so that you can create the words. You learn to create a word, then it takes the same creating process, same 4 steps of creating, flip it around, and you take those and make those parsing steps. And now it sort of falls apart in front of you what the word is. And so that's why we're doing this. We're doing heavy lifting so that basically it's like Hebrew boot camp, so that when we come around to it and it comes to time to parse, to determine what a word is, how to translate it, you know all the data that you need, and it falls apart in front of you and it becomes very simple. And this is the strategy we have here moving forward. We learn the basic parts so that you can think through it, and that when you look at Hebrew words, it's not that you it doesn't matter that you haven't seen it before. You can figure it out. If you don't do it this way, then the other way to do this is inductive, excuse me. It's where you just read a lot of Hebrew text, and that's good, but you never know for sure whether you've seen this before or not if you do the inductive method, and you're not always sure what you're really looking at. You don't have the data set to really determine, and one Hebrew word can appear in hundreds of different forms. If you know the data that sifts those out, then you only have to learn the vocabulary once, and so you learn that form and then all the little parts that and the rules for how it shakes out. Or you learn the 400 in the inductive method. You got to really know all those hundreds of different ways that it can put together. The way that I'm teaching you deductively is systematic in its format. So let's see, we had another question. When a iota is a consonant, when and why would it have a dot? Very, very good. So this moves forward a couple of chapters when we get into dotted letters. There are two types of dots in letters. One is a Dagesh forte. That means it's a doubling dot. The letter is doubled in reality. So Hebrew didn't like to write something like the word hammer with two M's. They would have written it with one M and a dot. This is what's happening in Hebrew. And so a yod with a dot in it is a consonant. And so so that's what's happening, is that you've got a doubled letter. Some verb stems always double the middle root letter. And so that would be the case of nailing it down with that, something like that. A vav, this is why it's important to know whether it's a doubled letter, vav, or is it a shurek. And so if the vav has its own vowel, then it's not a vowel itself, because a vowel is not going to have a vowel, and this sort of thing. So this is what we're talking about with these consonant versus vowels, and it comes into this very question of dots and not having dots. There's only a handful of letters, the Beged Kefet letters, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, and Tav. Those letters can have a lene or a forte. A lene is just a pronunciation dot. A doubling dot is a forte. And so a lene can appear at the beginning of a word in a Beged Kefet letter. A Dagesh forte cannot, because that would make you stutter at the beginning of the word. Baba, da-da, that sort of thing. In any case, this is what we're looking at. The only real question of the lene, the pronunciation dot, which hardens the pronunciation of that letter, it really comes down to those are the only problems that we have are the Beged Kefet letters. Everything else is a Dagesh forte, which is nice. And so we have to really learn that too, and that's coming up in future lessons. So knowing these rules and what it comes down to, if a yod is without a vowel or a dot, it's preceded by a sereh, hirik, or segol, the yod is a vowel. So I try, and anything else, it's a consonant. I mean, I sort of try to whittle these down a little bit. Vav, I might look more to the consonants first. A vav without a dot in its middle or at its top is a consonant. A vav having a dot in its middle or top and preceded by a vowel or schwa is a consonant. Anything else is a vowel. So I tend to do that sort of thing of rather than memorize all these, just memorize the shortest one and say anything else. That's how I deal with these. The syllables are important because we're going to, again, be creating words, and then we're going to be using syllable rules, because what happens is when you add suffixes, pronominal suffixes to the end of a word, it moves the accent. Or if the word is in construct with another word, like the law of Moses, it's in construct with Moses, it throws the accent off, and then you start to crunch the syllable rules. And in the Hebrew text, the words change their look. What they've done is they're changing the syllable rules of how you pronounce that word and how then it's written. And so that's why we're having to learn about syllables. And so you have closed syllables, which are consonant, vowel, consonant. You have open syllables, which are consonant vowel. And then when you move the accent mark, there are rules about shortening and lengthening of vowels as you go through the word. And so this way, by learning the syllable rules, again, you're going to look at a word and go, oh yeah, I know exactly why it looks the way it looks, rather than look at a word and go, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So this is a very helpful way of making you confident about the words that you're looking at. And so Fuller talks about syllabifying, dividing between syllables, like you've got dam is a closed syllable, you have ah is an open syllable, and may is an open syllable, may adam. You're going to always stress the accented syllable, and in the Hebrew text and in this grammar, 95, 98% of the time, the last syllable is going to be where the accent is. If it's not on the last syllable, it will be on the second of the last syllable. And that's all so we will stress, as we have here, safer. You stress the first open syllable here, say, fair, safer. Shafa, shafa. So you stress the last syllable there with an open syllable at the end. Because the hey can't close a syllable, it's too weak. Same thing with an aleph at the end of a syllable, the aleph, or the end of a word, the aleph can't close. And accents are important because we'll see them marked in the Hebrew text. And when you see a disjunctive accent mark, a certain one that stops, it's like a stop sign, they're wonderful. The Masoretes, who basically wrote the current version of the Hebrew text, as far as the Leningrad Codex, from which we get the VHS for the most part, they put these disjunctive accent marks that say, hey, these are parentheses. We're going to translate these words together. We're going to translate these words together. And they have a pecking order of the strength of these accents. And the first 8 have a pecking order where you can say, put brackets around this, these, put brackets around these, translate this together. And syntactically, it's a huge boon. You can figure out the way the Masoretes read it just by knowing the disjunctive accent marks. And there's only 8 major ones that you need to learn, and they're wonderful. So we will be learning those over time as well. And so syllable terminology, the tone syllables, the accent syllable, post-tonic is the syllable after the tone syllable. Pre-tonic is the syllable before the tone syllable, the accented syllable. So davar, but the dalet is the pre-tonic syllable. And so this is how you would have it from meha'adam. Pre-tonic open must be long, and this sort of thing. So we have all these things going on. And then here's an article, and this is the preposition nin attached to the front of words. This is why I'm teaching the deductive method, is again, they attach articles, they attach particles, they attach other prepositions to the front of words. You've got to be able to slice and dice it rather than try to read this as a word, mehadam, when it's not a lexical word. It's not a lemma. It's a word that's been conglomerated with other things. Adam is the word, and the article is attached, and the preposition nin is attached. And so from the man is what you have, meh adam, and you only have the noun here at the end. So this method helps with that. And so you're going to be, of course, doing the questions, and I read the vocab again online, and we will get chapter 6. We'll start actually translating, and I've again posting those. The shwa is a nice little indicator that there was or was not a vowel. If it's vocal, it's an indicator that it was actually a vowel at one time, and it's been, in classical Hebrew terms, you call it attenuated. It was thinned down. Attenuation is thinning down. So in the syllable rules, you get a shwa, a vowel that has been thinned down. We do this in English, and I'm thinking like we stress the accent, the heavy accent on the end, and we say because, not because, but we take that e vowel and we just thin it down. Because, we just make it a little shwa up there, or the police. We're stressing the last of it, lease, not the po. Now some might go stress the police, but most of us say the police. And when we thin down the O vowel, and that's what is happening with the schwa. They're taking their heavy accented syllables that are so far away from other letters, and they're saying, oh, it's like a vacuum that's drawing the life out and compacting that vowel at the end of at the beginning of the word. So the Hebrews put a schwa there. That's a vocal schwa. A silent schwa is when they put in a schwa and they say, there never was a vowel on this. It was the end of a syllable, a closed syllable. And so we're going to put a silent schwa. Unfortunately, they put the same symbol for both of these. And that's where the issue comes in. And so you have to be able to determine between the two, and the syllable rules are here and how they're dealt with. Again, I go over these in great detail in the lecture, and the rules are here about these. And you syllabify after a silent, or after a silent schwa, you syllabify in front of a vocal schwa. A vocal schwa cannot constitute a syllable. It doesn't constitute a vowel, and it can't make up a syllable as far as that's all you have, because it's not a vowel. It's not a true vowel. It's a thinned down vowel, and the Hebrews considered it, and there's good argument for this, the Hebrews considered it to not be a full vowel, and they just attached those to the following syllable. There are modern grammars that call a vocal schwa a vowel and make them constitute syllables. Well, that's wonderful. They can do that because we're all just describing what's there. But if you do that, you end up with 24 syllable rules, and you end up with a parsing guide that's a page and a half long. If you do it the way we're teaching you here, you end up with 5 syllable rules, and your parsing guide is 4 steps. So it's much easier to deal with, and actually, I believe, accurate. And so this is the way we're teaching that. So we get into the chapter 3 exercises. So I'm going to stop this for a moment. Are there any questions about what we've seen so far? More chat questions. I know it's daunting. Yes.
I have a question, Dr. Mitchell, not about the material necessarily, but I noticed that I sent you a discussion question, but it was right before we started this, so you probably haven't seen it yet. The module, I only have 2 modules showing up so far. Do they come in as time goes by, or are they coming all at once, or?
They will come in as I get them completed, because I have my whole course is set up in Blackboard, and I have to take everything down, and I have to upload them, and because the vocab quizzes don't work you can't change them over. I'm having to type them all 750, 800 words in. I'm having to type all that in and create new question banks. And so later, by the end of the week, no, that's a good question. By the end of the week, you should have probably through lesson 14, but within maybe 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have all of them up, all 38 lessons.
Okay.
So
okay. Thank you.
It's going to take me time. Yeah, it's coming. It would be nice if that were all there were. And I was just saying, I know it's daunting. I mean, there's a lot here, but it's about your attitude coming in. I mean, I don't know if you've ever run a long distance, but if you're mentally prepared for running a long distance, you can run the long distance. If you're mentally prepared for running a mile and you're asked to run 7, you're going to come to a wall and just say, I just can't do it. And really, it's more of a mental thing. And that's true about Hebrew as well. It's a long haul here. You can slug it out. You can do it. I say it's like eating an elephant. You can't swallow it all at once, but you can eat it a bite at a time. It's that sort of thing. It's coming at you like a fire hydrant. I mean, it's coming at you. The data is flowing at you, and you're supposed to drink from it. You're always going to feel like you're 2 to 3 weeks behind. And in this instance, you're talking about at 2 to 3 weeks, we're looking at 6 to 9 chapters. You're going to feel behind just because the issue is your brain assimilating. It's very good to do your study in segments. Study in the morning. Study, and I know it's going to take time to just do all the work, but study and give yourself some time to rest, 2-3 hours, 4 hours. If you can get that, study again and do your work, and then study in the evening. So 3 times a day. There's a difference between study like vocab study or grammar quiz study, where you're trying to really get it memorized, because some of these things you have to memorize, and just doing your work. But those type of memorization study times definitely take 4 hours in between, and do it in segments, and because your brain needs to shift and to get that to settle in your brain, and you'll feel behind, but you will be gaining. It's another analogy I use. It's like pouring water into a colander. A colander is a southern term for a bowl that's got holes in it for washing vegetables, and the water's running out of your brain as soon as you pour that Hebrew in. But over time, it starts to plug up, and so it's that repetition. Sometimes this material and what I'm asking you sounds so rote. It's like, why do I have to do this so many times? It's to plug the holes, because it's the repetition that plugs the holes. It really is. And so over time, it'll start to gather together. And at the end, as far as translating, my goal is that you can actually read Hebrew. That's my goal. Now, maybe that's not your goal. Maybe other professors don't push you to that extent. But if you get to the point that you can latch on, it's like a train, and you're either running in front of this train, or and you can't get off the tracks, and you're either gonna keep running in front of this train, or it's gonna run you over, because it's that sort of thing. Or you could say it, if you're running behind the train, it's like you're trying to lasso that train to keep going. And if you can get to the point that you can read Hebrew, that you've got the grammar rules down, that you've got some vocab down, and that you can read some basic Hebrew, and then you were to read a verse a day of something simple like Jonah or Ruth, or passages that you know well, and you were to do that a verse a day, even just the stuff you know fairly well, your Hebrew skills will solidify and gel, and those holes will plug up, and you will be able to read a little bit more and a little bit more. You'll learn vocabulary and context. And if you were to do that, take this class and then do that, in 3 years, you will be amazed at your Hebrew skills. You'll be able to use it, and it will keep building over time. If you don't get to the point that you can read, you will be able to use it for doing a word study, for doing logos, for checking up a specific issue in a translation, but your skills won't grow. They'll sort of atrophy. And so most students get out of biblical Greek, biblical Hebrew, and their skills atrophy. My goal is I'm expecting that you're wanting to go preach, teach, and use these skills for lessons, and for Bible study, and for training believers in the knowledge of Scripture to rightly handle the word of truth, and that you're going to want to use this skill. You're not going to want to set your Hebrew bicycle aside and never use it again. So that's the goal here, is to get you where you need to be. There's a sea of points in this class. And if you do the work, you have a good attitude, you push through, you'll get done, you'll learn what you need to learn, and you'll be ready to make the next step. That's what this is about. And if you do all the work in this class is designed to give you a decent grade. You'll get a decent grade. It's just the way this class works. Because I know that you're working hard. Some of y'all are really good at languages. It's going to feel easy. Some of y'all are not so great at languages, and it's going to be really hard. But there comes a point, if you push, that the language will start to make sense. Those holes will start to fill up, and it'll just you'll have a paradigm shift, and it'll make sense. And things will get a little simpler. Things take less time. So the amount of study you're studying up front will start to reduce, because you're starting to get the flow of it. You start to understand things. It takes time, but you'll get there. And so I just want to encourage you that you can do this. There are little bitty children learning Hebrew every day, right? They're over in Israel, and they're in enclaves of Hebrew communities, Jewish communities. They're learning these things. You can too. When I first learned Hebrew, I didn't learn this way. I learned an inductive way, and I was pulling my hair out because I was so frustrated. I wanted to do Old Testament study and doctor work, and I didn't get it. Well, this way, it's the reason I teach this way, because it made sense to me. When I saw this, I was like, the world is turned over. This is the way to learn Hebrew. This is the way I felt about it, the way some of my friends felt about it. Those of us who had Dr. Fuller and learned this way, this is the way we all teach. Different flavors for different folks. Some folks have a different way of learning, and so maybe this isn't the best, but for you. But for most, it works quite well. If you're a linear thinker, if you like math, engineering, music, this works quite well. Your brain will fit with this. And so it is a good way of learning it, but it takes time. It takes work. And I wish I could make it easier. I try to put the cookies on the lower shelf for you. I try to make it to where it's doable. But I realize and commiserate with you, and I will be praying for your success, that this is a lot of work, but it's about your mental preparation. You can do it. Don't get frustrated. Don't get down. If you got a problem, contact me, because I'm here to help. My grader Bob Schwarzbeck is here to help. Our seminary tutor Daniel Buller, he knows my method. He's sat in my classes. He knows what I'm doing. He's here to help. He's got an online offer of free tutoring, so you can set up a time with him to get some help as well. And we'll have these online sessions, and then of course you've got all my lectures online as well. And I'll be adding things where I can. So, any questions about anything as we begin this journey?
I had a question on a couple of letters. Specifically the pay and the cough. They have the dot that changes the pronunciation of it, and they have a final form. How do you know the final form is, for instance, the pay if it has the sound of a P or the PH in the final form?
Okay, just count the final form as a hard sound. In modern readings of Hebrew, most of those letters don't have the hard versus soft. They're just read hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of them, yes, the bait might be a V sound if it's soft, but the tav, the cough, they're not really making a distinction. But yeah, just count the cough as hard. You're going to be fine, because we're talking about reading sound versus writing. Reading the text. We're really about the text here.
Okay.
Reading it vocally does speed up your reading speed. It really does. So I encourage you to recite the Hebrew letters, to recite later on the verb forms. We'll be learning all the verb forms of just the call stem, because it'll help us learn the call parts. But reciting the words, even vocab, reading them vocally, makes a difference, speeds up your reading, helps you with memory. The more senses you can bring in, the sound is very important and helpful. So yes, that's good. Good question. Any other questions?
If I'm understanding you correctly, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If I'm understanding you correctly, we shouldn't be discouraged, I guess, at the beginning with these first couple of chapters you're reading and doing exercises.
Yeah.
You seem every other thing's a red mark, because it's hard to get it all in your brain.
You're going to be living in a sea of red.
Okay.
It's like, I like the barn analogy. If you got a clean barn, there's not much progress going on with those animals. You're not really working with those animals. I mean, the animals are there for a reason on a farm. They're for produce, but they cause a lot of mess. They have to be cleaned up. That's the learning process in languages. And so the thing about the red marks is that you're going to the answers and you're checking yourself, and you're getting the lines. Okay, am I within the lines? And that's important. It's important for us in that we get feedback. And the problem is with even with on campus, online, whatever, is if we don't have that feedback where you're actually checking your answers, if we don't have it, then it will be next week before you can answer that. Well, within 2-3 days, you're going to have forgotten about it. You're not going to care. Without that, you're sort of lost. It's amorphous. The whole idea of Hebrew, there's no lines drawn. There's no correction. So it's important that you get that immediate feedback. And that's why we've gone to having you check your own work for a lot of it. We do follow up and check it and that sort of thing. But yeah, immediate feedback is so important in language. That's why even on vocab, you flip the card over, right? You're studying, you got to check yourself, and you're just doing that all the time. So I'm trying to build that into the course, but that means that you're going to have a sea of red marks. Don't be frustrated by that. Just accept it. Okay, yeah, I got to think this way about it. And over time, that repetition, you're going to get it. Some things will be so shocking when you see them. It's like, that looks so hard, but it's so shocking when you see it. It's like, you'll never forget it again after seeing it one time. There have been quite a few things in Hebrew that I have run across that are like that. It's like, this is an anomaly, but boy, I saw it once and now I've never forgotten it. So some things are like that. A lot of things, again, this is the basic vocab. If you have the vocab down, this course is 50% easier. I'm serious. Vocab is the hardest thing in the course. And so make sure you spend time at least 3 times a day for 30 minutes at least, minimum, morning, noon, and evening, morning, afternoon, evening. Spend time on your vocab and make sure you've got that down cold. Everything else will be easier. It's true down the line. There is a course beyond this, 3rd semester. You're not required to take it. But if you know your vocab and all these grammar parts, when you come into that class, it's so much easier and becomes fun. The thing is, anything that you do that you're good at can become fun. And it may be work now, but when you can do it easily, it becomes not a difficulty. And when you're using it actually to translate scripture and this sort of thing, then it becomes exciting and becomes fun. So you can enjoy Hebrew. I enjoy Hebrew. Right now, it may not be enjoyable, but there's a gold mine at the end of this. The gold mine is that you're able to take this study and mine from scripture gold nuggets that for your preaching and teaching that are going to make sense to you. And you're not going to be standing on someone else's shoulders who's standing on someone else's shoulders who's standing on someone else's shoulders and not know what you're doing, not really know. That's what happens if you don't know the languages and you're trying to read a commentary that your pastor recommends this commentary and he's quoting someone else, and you really can't do the work for yourself. It's a basic thing, and we want you to be able to do the work for yourself. Let me see. There's a question here. I missed a new question here. How do we add the Hebrew resources to Logos software? Well, now I'm not certain about the offers or how the resources or what's going on with Swibbits and Logos. I know that there's something going on there, that Swibbits now has a relationship with Logos, and there is a package that they recommend. I'm not sure how that works. You might contact Logos and you tell them you're a Swibbits student. They should be able to get the ball rolling as far as that. I do use Logos. I use it every day. There are many of my colleagues and many that would say, well, Accordance is better at morphological searching. It may be you can do the morphological searching in Logos, and it has improved over time, but the books that are offered in Logos far exceed what's offered in Accordance. And if you're a pastor or going to be a missionary, you want to have your books wherever you are, I love it. And again, I use it for Bible study and sermon prep and teaching prep, and I use it for writing. So I'm using it every day on my phone, on my computer at home. This one I'm on at home. On my laptop at work, I've got an iPad. It's there. I've had hard drives crash, and I get a new hard drive, and I dial into Logos. They download all my resources. They're all there. I've been overseas and need a book, and I'm writing an article, and I'm able to get on and purchase the book, and typically for less, not always, but typically for less than you would buy a print book, and I'm up and running in moments on that book. I've been in church, and we're doing a new Bible study, and they're using some book, and download it right there in church on my phone, and I'm following along. So very nice. I really love the capability. I only probably use 20, 25% of the capability of it, but that's hugely powerful. The issue with these, however, is that they can stunt your Hebrew and Greek skills. They're a great tool, and they can turn the Hebrew skills that you learn in Hebrew 1 and 2 and 3. They can and the Greek skills that you learn in the Greek classes, they can turn those into power saws that can cut down forests in a day, acres of forests in a day. Take your hand saw that takes 20 minutes to cut off a limb, and trade it in for a power saw that you can cut down an acre of forest. But if you don't know how how Hebrew works, you don't know the skills that you need in these classes that we're offering, then you're really uncertain about it, and you really can't use them to full effect, or that you will be using those skills or those tools to less effect. Like it may be a chainsaw, but it's a dull chainsaw. You ever try to cut something down with a dull chainsaw? It doesn't work very well. It's quite difficult. You're not cutting down an acre of forest with a dull chainsaw. So that's why you really need both. You need these language courses, but then you need a Bible study software. Back to your question, which ones? I mean, you need Halot. That's the lexicon. You could do BDB. That's the old standard lexicon. Halot is the current scholarly lexicon. BDAG is the current version of BDAG is the scholarly lexicon for Greek. So you would want those in the minimum. So as far as the resources you would want or how to put them on, you need to check with them and check with the school. Maybe the school has something. I'm not sure that exactly where to go or who to talk to about that. So. All right. Well, I don't normally attend these to go this long. So this is a very long session. I'm happy to spend as much time as you want, but I don't want to keep you here. These sessions typically run about 30 minutes. We go long. I go as long as you need, as long as you want. So in the future, we don't have all the house cleaning and set up and that sort of thing, but happy to answer any and all questions and stay as long as you need. But I don't want to keep folks here if you're good. So I would say, are there any other questions? Last chance to ask a question. Overall, if you're done, I'm done for the moment. I'll be praying for you this week. Don't hesitate to contact us. Again, we want to keep you going. If there's a course stoppage, the urgent board, answer question. So everyone gets those questions and answers. They ask the professor. But I'll be praying for you, and I'll see you next week. But I'm staying, and if someone has a question, I'm happy to stay and answer it. So God bless.
Thank you so much for doing this. I just want to kind of give a little word of encouragement to everybody. I just got out of Greek 1 and 2, and what you just said about pushing through and doing that is exactly right, because that I was in a normal semester, not the summer semester, and I'm 3/4 of the way done with an MDiv, but that class had me panicked, had me stressed, and everything else. And, you don't want to look at chapter 38 right now and go, what is this? And I started finally taking it 1 week at a time, and it all works out. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm telling you, because I was freaking out. So everything that he just said about that, if you feel like this, and this is your very first language, because that was my first language in 30 years since I was in high school or whatever, he's right. So just don't freak out too much. And I just want to tell everybody that real quick. But thank you for doing these. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good word. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, you're free to go.
Thanks a lot. See you later.
Absolutely. Take care.